Hi guys, we are back with a vlog and today we are at Bukit Unggul Golf and Country Club. So I have actually never been to this golf club, but as you can see it is very beautiful. It's about a 40-minute drive from KL. So it's a little bit in the outskirts and that's why it is very mountainous. As you can see, there's a lot of trees and it's a very beautiful golf course. So I'm very excited to bring you guys through today's round. We are actually starting on the back nine today, which is hole 10, and it is a par 5.
Oh, nice draw.
So good.
Oh my god, you reached the tree.
So focused. You didn't even hear
Wow, nice bounce.
my club drop.
Left of the tree.
Your club what? Drop. Oh, you didn't hear
It
that?
had a...
Why, you dropped your club when I hit?
Yeah.
So obviously this being the first time I'm playing this golf course, I didn't really know what the hole looked like. It is quite a severe dogleg right to left, and I hit it pretty far out to the right side because I didn't know what was on the left side. But if you do want to hit it further, I think that if you actually hit the left side, the slope there actually would bring the ball down versus on the right side, which obviously is a longer carry. But also do bear in mind that the more you hit down the left side, the more the left trees come into play. So I am pretty much happy with where I hit because I had a straight shot and I wasn't blocked by any tree. So it really depends on what you want to do, and also I think it depends on how far you carry the ball, because if you do hit it far enough that it can go down the slope and give you an opportunity to go for the green, then I think it's worth it. If not, you should just hit more towards the right side. So this par 5 is basically a 3-shot hole from where I was. So after hitting a 3-wood, I have about 57 yards. But this also means that you can basically hit anything you want for your second shot because it is quite a narrow fairway up here. So basically something that's going to get you on the fairway. So as I said, I have 57 yards. I'm hitting a 58-degree wedge here. It's kind of a half shot, but it is uphill. So I'm making sure that it carries all the way up there because we don't want to leave it short and have it come back. So I hit a decent shot there and left myself with a 6-feet putt. Didn't really know what the greens were running at or what kind of grass it was. It looked like it was really nice grass actually, but I just didn't really hit that and didn't give it enough break. So let's move on to the next hole, which is a pretty narrow par 4. As you can see, it is another dogleg left, but you definitely do not want to go too far left because there does not seem like there is much room over there. Down the right side as well, basically I shot one of those trees and knew that I could not reach it, so that is my target for this drive. I always find it best when there is a dogleg to just shoot something on the right side and hit towards that side so that you're not tempted to try and hit a draw, especially when there's hazards or OB on the left side. So not only was the tee off pretty difficult, but it is also a really long hole, so I still have 212 yards left and it is an uphill green. In front of the pin there were bunkers and I did not think that this early in the morning I could carry my 3-wood high enough and long enough to be able to not only carry those bunkers but stay on the green as well. So I decided to aim a little bit more towards the right side. There is a little building at the back there if you can see, and that was kind of my aim. I'm also standing on an uphill lie, so I anticipated that it would draw a little bit from there, so I knew that I wouldn't go too far right and get myself in trouble, so just aimed out towards the right side and let the draw naturally take itself back there. I ended up over here, which is not a bad place. As I said, in front of the green there are bunkers, so I definitely chose the best place to miss it to here. I was hitting a 58-degree wedge, but this green was a little bit downhill and then uphill, so my plan here was to land it on the downslope and let it roll. Unfortunately, I landed it on the downslope, but my ball just spinned, so I still left myself with a really long putt. Definitely not what I was expecting because I did hit a chip that I wanted to, it just did not roll out like I planned. So I guess that's just not knowing the greens and not really knowing if they would spin or roll out, but I definitely could have left myself with a much easier putt.
Didn't break.
Then I coupled it with a complete misread, so definitely wasn't my best effort here. Bogey on the 11th hole, but it was a long hole anyway, so we will just have to take it and move on to the next hole. Hole 12's tee shot can be a little bit tricky because I think that Even myself, I had a tendency to want to aim towards the right side, but I came up here and I shot those trees in the distance, and it's actually a really long ways to go. The fairway also kicks left to right, so you definitely do want to aim more towards the left than you think. Even though it is a short hole and a dogleg right, the focus here is still to go on the fairway, and the best aim is actually that electrical tower out there. So that was where I hit it, and as you can see, I ended up on the fairway. So another thing is on this hole, definitely anticipate having a down slope for the second shot, because this entire fairway basically is a huge slope. So if you can find the one flat spot here, I'd be impressed, but definitely just anticipate a downhill slope. The pin today was tucked right, so I was kind of aiming there because I knew that with what I was trying to hit, I was going to close the face a little bit. And obviously when you close the face a little bit on a downhill lie like that, the ball is just going to go a little bit more left. But because the pin was tucked right, I was fine with doing that. I knew that if anything, I was going to be on the green versus having a chance of missing it right and having to give myself a chip, which is not what we want on a short hole. So even though I had a pretty long putt for birdie, I had 33 feet, and it was quite a big breaker as well, I still gave myself a putt for birdie, which is always what we're looking for.
Oh my God!
Wow. Wow.
I like how he's
That's awesome.
Donnie, I thought you didn't want to be in the YouTube video.
No, she won't show me.
11.
Wow.
He thinks I'm not gonna show him.
Hole 13 is another dog leg. It's a dog leg left, and it is quite a scary tee box because those trees on the left side kind of come into the tee box. So if you don't hit a draw, this is not a very easy tee shot, and I would definitely recommend hitting something shorter. I was aiming towards that house out there, and I thought that over there it was a cart path, but actually it's a hazard, and I hit it a little bit too far right. I didn't really catch it, which was good for me, but I almost ran out of fairway. So you definitely either want to hit something shorter or you want to aim more towards the left side. If you're a fade player, I recommend hitting something shorter. If not, it's going to be just a very difficult tee shot, just based on the look of it. After that, because I kind of ran out of fairway like I said, I was in the rough on a little bit of a downslope. So I took a pitching wedge from 120 yards and just kind of hit a little punch out there. This green has a little bit of a false front. As you can see, this is not really green, but like it kind of looks like green, but it's not. So this whole part here just rolls down. As I've just shown you, this green does have a little bit of a deceiving feature, which is that false front. From the fairway, you really can't see it. Even from here, it kind of all looks like green. But if you look towards the left side, you can see that little line there, which is the line separating the green and that false front. So you do want to take more club here for sure. And from there, I had quite a difficult putt because it just broke so much. And I still left myself with about a 3-footer after that. So this was my 3-footer for par. And we made it, and we're on to the next hole. The next hole is a par 3. And this par 3 was only playing 110 yards. It did seem like it was a little bit downhill, but then when we used the rangefinder, it didn't really say that it was downhill. I think it also does go a little bit down and then uphill, so I decided to hit a pitching wedge. I wasn't hitting a full pitching wedge here because a regular pitching wedge would carry about 110, so I was thinking that I would carry this about 110, but I think that the greens really started to dry up, and I hit that and flew the green, so I definitely was not expecting to fly the green. But because of that, I left myself here, and I did not realize that the left side of this green is not where you want to be. Basically, from where I was in today's pin position, this chip was uphill and then downhill, and it was quite severely downhill. So it was very, very fast. So I was really just aiming to kind of go past that rough in front of the green and just let it roll by itself. This is definitely not where you want to hit it on this green. This is a really short one, so I should have hit the green and I shouldn't have gone over. But you know, mistakes happen and sometimes that happens, so you just gotta do the best with what you can. But the left side of the screen is definitely not where you want to go. Hole 15 is a par 5. Again, another dogleg left. There is a bunker down the left side which is within reach, so you want to aim more towards the right side of this fairway. I was kind of aiming left of that electrical tower pole thing up there. Not that severely right, but a little bit left of that. Basically the center of this fairway, which I know is easier said than done to hit the center of the fairway. But you definitely want to go more towards the center right side of this fairway. If you do go to the right side, there are a few trees and it does bounce towards the right side, but that is still better than being on the left side here, obviously. So I chose my aim and basically hit it down there. Obviously I play a draw, so for me this hole wasn't really bad at all. After that, I still had about 260 yards to the pin. It was a little bit uphill and there are bunkers down the left side. So I was hitting this 3-wood a little bit down the right side and just hitting a little bit of a softer one because I couldn't get it there, but I knew that my 3-wood was good enough to hit straight and be on the fairway, so that's why I decided to go with a 3-wood. But you can really hit whatever you want for this second shot.
Oh, great shot. Very nice.
So after that 3-wood, I left myself only with about 61 yards, which is really not far at all. So from here, I couldn't really see the pin position. The green is a little bit elevated, but the pin today was all the way behind. So it was 61 yards to the pin, and because I'm hitting a 58-degree wedge, I decided to fly it about 58. But I think that, as I mentioned before, the greens just started getting really hard, and I don't know how, but my 58 rolled over. But there was also a downslope on the green, so there was a possibility that I might have just landed on that downslope and that's why it kicked over. But anyway, I had this 58-degree wedge here and I was definitely trying to make that chip, which I didn't, but I left myself with a tap-in. It's just not the best when you hit a good shot and you're still not on the green, but it is what it is. We'll move on to the next hole, hole 16. So distractions aside, this par 4 is actually a dogleg right. There are bunkers down the left side, so you do want to hit it a little bit more towards the right side of this fairway, but the rough comes in towards the right side more than you can see. So my friend who hit it, what we thought was on the fairway actually ended up in the right rough. So you do want to choose a target that's a little bit more left. Might have been a little bit distracted there and didn't hit the best shot, but where I hit and where I missed was actually a pretty good miss. So because I didn't hit it very well, I still had about 130 yards to the green. It was a little bit uphill. The pin was in front and there is a bunker in front as well. So you had to make sure that you carried the entire 130. So I hit my 8-iron, which should carry about 135. From this lie, I was really not sure if it was going to release a lot, but first goal here was obviously to make sure that it carried the bunker and was on the green. So that's why I hit a punch 8-iron there and just let it do its thing. I really couldn't see the green at all from here.
Where's the ball? I can't see it. Oh.
As I said, it is elevated as well, so you can't see it. But I was still on the green, and as I said, because the greens are hard as well, it's just not very easy to hit it as close. So especially since it started drying up, the greens definitely got significantly harder, and we can tell because the balls are getting further and further behind, and it's not that we're landing it over, we're actually landing it in a good spot, but it's bouncing over. So the greens here are definitely a little bit hard. As I think you can tell as well, I didn't hit that putt very hard, but it rolled quite a bit, so it was definitely a lot faster than I thought. I still ended up having a 9-footer coming back, and I know a lot of you guys are wondering how I calculate my distance, as in like this 9 feet putts and stuff like that. I pace them out, so from this angle I know it doesn't look like 9 feet, but it's 3 steps, so that's about 9 feet. And yeah, save the par there, and let's move on to hole 17. So as you can tell, it's also gotten significantly hotter. And I think that when you are in the mountains, which is where we are, when it's cooling, it's really nice, but when it's hot, it's really hot. And that's why the grass probably dried up really quick. And that's why the greens are getting harder. So for this hole, I had 167 yards. I was hitting a 6-iron here. But because of, as I said, the greens getting hard, I was just hitting a pretty regular 6-iron, not hitting that super hard. And I left myself pin high. It was about 20 feet to the pin. So again, not super close, but this hole from the tee box was definitely not the easiest to see as well. Most of the greens here are elevated, so you really can't see what the contours of the greens are like, especially when it's your first time playing the golf course. But basically, we're just trying to give ourselves as many putts as we can here, right? So anyway, we have made it to hole 18. Hole 18 is a par 4. It is pretty long, as you can tell. It's 416 yards. So there's a bunker down the right side and a cart path down the right side. But there is space down the left side as well. So to carry the bunker, it was about 230 yards. And I thought that I would play it safer by aiming more towards the left side. Because I didn't really know what was down the right side, and also because there's a cart path there and I didn't want to take the risk of it hitting the cart path and bouncing right or something and going into a worse position, I decided to go more towards the left side of this fairway.
Okay, that's good.
So unfortunately for me trying to be safer didn't really pay off because I ended up running out of fairway and I ended up being here in this kind of odd lie where it was kind of in between the rough and the fairway, and it was just not sitting very nicely, and I still had 171 yards, so I was hitting a 5-iron. I knew this was not going to be an easy shot and I was almost tempted to hit a hybrid and just punch it out there, but I just hit a major chunk there. Not a good shot, but you know what? That's just golf, right? We don't hit good shots all the time. So I know I could have just left it out there because nobody wants to see me chunk, but that's just the reality of playing golf. Sometimes bad shots happen. After that, I still had 58 yards. So as you can tell, that 5-iron went 120 yards. So it was a really bad one, but I hit a good chip there.
Diane, where is my ball? Where is my ball?
It's in the hole.
Don't lie. Where did it go?
So no, I did not hit it in the hole, but I hit it pretty darn close. So they actually pushed the ball inside and I couldn't find my ball, so that's why we were joking. But I had to put it in for the sake of YouTube because nobody's gonna believe that I hit it there if I don't show you guys, right? So anyway, front 9 is done. Let's move on to the back 9. As you can see, the back 9 is equally as beautiful. Well, actually this is the front 9 of the golf course, but our back 9. So hole 1 is a par 4. It is downhill, dogleg right to left. So again, as I said, lots of doglegs on this golf course, but you really gotta resist the temptation of trying to cut the doglegs because honestly, there's just not much reward to it and there's usually more space down the other side. So I would definitely say you don't need to be too aggressive here. Try to find fairways and you will make your life a lot easier. And it's not just about finding fairways in the sense of like hitting really good shots and finding fairways, but also in the sense of like if you miss it, it's still going to be in a good position. And the way that you do that is really just to make sure that you're aiming towards the largest side. Because over here, for instance, if you're really trying to cut and because it's a short hole, you're trying to get it as close as possible and then you try to cut towards the left side. If you were to miss it, chances are you're going to be in the trees. Versus if you were to aim towards the right side, yes, it's going to make the hole longer, but at the same time, it's not a long hole anyway. So hitting 100 yards from the fairway versus hitting 70 yards from the trees, I mean, I would prefer the one from the fairway. I don't know about you guys, but it's basically choosing the best point of if you're going to miss it, where do you want to be? Because at the end of the day, we're not going to hit good shots all the time. As you can see, from less than 100 yards, I didn't even hit the green. I actually hit a decent shot. It just kind of hit the front and actually backspinned on cow grass. And I don't really know how that happened, but it happened. So I'm short and I'm hitting a 58-degree wedge here.
Oh, good.
Oh, it's full of water.
Too late.
Hole 2 is a par 3, so it's playing 165 yards. It said that it was about 140 to carry that bunker, which is in front of the pin. So I was kind of going between a 7 and an 8-iron, but I decided to go with the 7 because 165 technically should be a 7, but carrying the bunker at 140 could have been an 8. So for me, I was kind of in between, and since the greens are going hard, I didn't really know what I should hit.
It's over.
So I definitely ended up taking too much club because I ended up over the green again. So not the most ideal because I don't know if I'm hitting it too solid or it's just going really far, but it seems like I'm the only one having that problem, so it might just be me. But definitely having a hard time gauging distance here. And clearly not just with my shots but with my wedges as well. I can't really tell when they're gonna roll out and when they're not. So I left that really short, which was not something I like because those are actually the chips that I really like to try and hold. So if anything, I should have hit that over rather than short because I didn't even give it a chance and left myself with too far of a putt, which led to a bogey. And that's not the best, but you know, when you don't really know a golf course, I guess the inconsistencies sometimes can affect your score. Anyway, let's move on to hole 3, which is a par 5. For this par 5, there is a water hazard down the right side of the fairway. So it is a dogleg left, but again, there is a lot more space down the right side than it seems. So unless you hit it like 300 yards, which then you can try and cut the corner, I would definitely still recommend hitting it straight and just playing the dogleg. Again, as I said before, it's going to make the hole longer, but unless you're really just trying to cut the corner and maybe even try to hit the cart path, I don't think you would be able to go for the green anyway, at least not if you're hitting around my distance, because the approach shot after that is really uphill. So just putting yourself in the fairway is much better than trying to cut corners on this hole.
Hi, Dondi.
After the tee shot, the entire hole basically just goes uphill, and there are a whole bunch of bunkers down the left side, so there really wasn't a way to go for the green, especially not when you hit towards the right side. If you hit towards the left side and you could play a draw, then you did have a chance, but from here there's really no chance. So I was just trying to aim towards the right side of this fairway and just completely take those bunkers out of play. I was hitting a 3-wood here, so I did aim quite far right and a little bit too far right if I'm being honest, but you know, it's like when there's nothing on the right side and there's bunkers on the left, obviously you're just going to try and go as far right as you can. As you can see, because of that I ended up in the rough, but it's still a pretty short distance. It's only 71 yards. It is uphill, so you do need to take a little bit more club, but I was coming out from the rough, so I knew that the ball wasn't going to hold much, so I just hit a 58-degree wedge out of here. After seeing the green, I noticed that actually if the pin position was in front and towards the right side, you do have a chance of going for the green. But because it was towards the left side today and on the upper tier, there was basically no chance. However, for this hole, you can't really see the pin position from the tee box, so I don't really know if that would be something helpful. But either way, it's a par 5. Basically, you're not going to lose any shots if you play a par 5 as a 3-shot hole. Hole 4 is a dogleg right downhill par 4. Because it is downhill, there is quite a bit of space that you can carry down the right side. So you can be a little bit more aggressive on this one just because I feel like there is quite a bit of space right and left. So there are bunkers that you need to be able to carry, and if you can carry those bunkers, you can actually go more for the tiger line, which is kind of where I'm going. It's close to one of those electric poles that you can see down there. It's a little bit hard to describe it from here, but basically, you can carry those bunkers. You're going to give yourself with a much shorter approach shot as compared to if you go down the left side, obviously. So that's what I did, and I left myself with 120 yards. So I will blame this a little bit on the people behind me because I was really rushing and I ended up bringing a 9-iron because I didn't think I would have that short of a distance. So basically, I didn't have the right club and I didn't want to go change it. So I tried to hit a soft 9-iron here and ended up hitting this way too hard. And as you can see, I didn't even look at the ball because I was just feeling so stressed. I do not like it when there's people behind me like watching me, especially because I'm recording and I know they're like, oh my gosh, this girl is going to take forever because she's recording. I promise guys, if you've played with me when I'm recording, I actually am pretty fast and I don't take much time. And I know that, but it still just doesn't feel good when you have people staring you down and you just have to rush. But anyway, made it on a green and left myself over here for par. So a 2-putt par here. The tee box is all the way up there. And we shall move on to hole 5. So for hole 5, you can't see it from this tee box, but basically anything left of that tree is actually a big water hazard. So for this tee shot, I was just hitting a 5-wood and trying to get it out on the fairway, because really there's no point trying to hit a driver and trying to get as close as you possibly can, because first of all, that brings the water hazard into play, and second of all, you can't go from the green, well, at least I can't go to the green from this distance anyway, so really no point hitting the driver. So I decided to go with a 5-wood, which for me is a pretty safe play because it's a club that I can rely on. I mean, I basically could have gone between the 5 and the 3, but the 3 had a possibility of reaching that bunker out there, which I did not want to come into play as well, so that's why I decided to go with the 5-wood. So I ended up hitting that a lot further than I thought I was going to. I thought I would still have a full wedge into the green, which was what I was trying to get, because I think a full wedge would be easier to stop than a chipping wedge based on what I've seen on this golf course. But I ended up with 58 yards, so I was hitting a 58-degree wedge here, and as you can see, it's just a little chipping motion, and I landed it pretty much where I wanted to. But again, it's just the greens are so hard.
It's so hard.
So I'm still on the green putting for birdie, but just not as close as I would like to be from that distance. The greens here also do not provide any spin, and that's why it's so difficult to get it close when you're hitting a chipping shot here. So just a little bit of a misread, but as you can see, it kind of went like right to left and then left to right, so it could have been that it was just a difficult putt. I mean, it was a difficult putt because it was downhill from where I was, so a par here is not a bad score. Let's move on to hole 6. Hole 6 is another par 4. This is a decent length par 4. It's 400 yards, and there's water down the right side of this fairway. So even though it is a dogleg right, you definitely do want to aim more towards the left side. The fairway here also kicks left to right, so even though hitting it left is going to give you a much longer distance into the green, I mean, it's much better to have a long distance into the green than to have to take a penalty drop from the hazard, right? So just definitely go more towards the left side.
Nice drive.
After the tee shot, I was left with about 140 yards. There is a bunker in front of this green as well, and as you can see, the ground that I am on is kind of like sandy, so I was a bit afraid to hit a full shot where you would take a full divot, because I wasn't really sure what was under the ground. So I decided to just hit an 8-iron here and just hit a little bit of a softer one. I didn't hit it very good. I think the grain was also into me at that point, so I kind of just got stuck. My club face kind of got stuck, which kind of led to the face shedding a little bit, so and that's why I left myself on the left side of this green. It was pin high, so it was the right club. It just obviously just didn't go in the right direction. But again, it's still a putt for birdie. Anyway, you can't expect to make too many over 30 feet. So let's move on to hole 7, which is another par 3. So this par 3, again, I was a little bit in between distance. It was 147 yards, but since the greens were so hard, I was contemplating hitting a 9-iron. But I ended up going with the 8-iron because I don't really know. It just feels weird to hit less club versus hitting more club, because, you know, most of the time when we play, the conditions are really wet. So in the end, I just decided to punch my 8-iron. But as you were able to see later, it ended up being over the green again. So definitely having a tough time getting it close, and thus having a tough time trying to make birdies. From the back of the green here though, the grass ended up being really wet, so it was a very different kind of conditions throughout the golf course. The inconsistencies definitely made it tough, but I mean, it is what it is. Golf courses in Malaysia are not going to be perfect because of the weather. Just gotta make do with what we have. So let's move on to hole 8. Hole 8 is a little bit of a dog leg right uphill par 4. So there is something down the right side. I think it was like, I'm not sure if it was a hazard or an OB. Basically, it's a ton of trees. And on the left side, the driver is reachable. You can reach the end of the fairway on the left side, so you don't want to go too far down the left side. Another option would be to hit something shorter and just go towards the left side, which would actually be the safer play on this hole.
Were you afraid of it? Give me, let me show.
So after the tee shot, I had about 120 yards left to the green. It was uphill, so you needed more distance to make sure that you got it all the way up there. Again, couldn't see the green, so had no idea what the green looked like. Basically just trying to make sure that I got the distance correct so that I can give myself a putt. So after seeing the green, I realized that this green actually kicks towards the left side, so you do want to go a little bit more towards the right side. However, we did not know that when we were hitting, and again, it really depends on the pin position. As you can see from where I was, it was a huge breaker, so not an easy putt. But most of the balls basically just ended up going to that direction, and that's just because the slopes on that green led there. So something that you won't really be able to know unless you play a golf course. But we managed to save a par there, and now we're on to the last hole. So the last hole is another par 4. Basically, it is the straightest hole that I have seen so far. You can actually see the green from this tee box, so that is quite nice. There is a bunker down the left side which is reachable, so although the trees do look a little bit scary, it's definitely more advisable to go a little bit towards the right side of this fairway.
The green also cannot see.
Oh, nice drop.
Nice.
After the tee shot had about 147 yards, it is again an elevated green, so had no idea what the green looked like, and the pin was tucked left, so was definitely just aiming towards the center of this green. I love the view that this hole had. I just feel like over here it completely just does not look like we're in Malaysia. It looks like we've traveled and we're playing in somewhere completely different. Definitely no city golf out here at Bukit Unggul. The greens are just weird. The grass is long and then it's growing in like every direction. And then this part it doesn't. And then in front there it does again.
Wow, step all over the line. The line not back enough. Have to step some more.
Sorry.